So we're carrying on with Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play. Uh, as most people know, but if anybody's new tonight or watching this for the first time, Sri Sharda Devi is reckoned by many to be an incarnation of God as mother. And she was the consort of Sri Ramakrishna, who is the founder of the order that I started. I'm a member of. Okay.
Oops.
In retrospect, in my last life, clearly. And so and we were ending last week with the Divine Mother was talking about doubt, and Yogin Ma was upset because she had doubted Holy Mother a little bit. And it was very interesting because Mother says to her, doubt is natural for the human mind. Doubt will arise and again faith will come. One develops faith in this way. And thus finally one attains firm faith. And I find that's one of my favorite things about Mother, actually, is that heart of gold and that compassion that she constantly exhibited to everybody around her. And for my journey back into religion, so I sound like a Californian. My journey back into religion, really and truly, it was because of reading of the Holy Mother's life and the compassion and sweetness that she had that gave me, that inspired me and gave me, I guess, a sense of reassurance, to try again, because I had kind of walked away from religion at that point in my life. And really that inspiration and that sweetness and that reassurance, and just that energy as a mother, just that presence as a mother, and that consistency in her practice of seeing everybody in the world as her child, and nurturing everyone and taking care of everyone's needs and never flinching from that, really inspired me and really brought me, gave me a lot of inner courage to kind of open my heart up to that aspect of spiritual life again. And so she's talking also a lot about Radhu, that she adopted really as her daughter to really keep her mind involved in the world. And we talked about that a little bit last week, is that the incarnation of the divine, their minds tend to go up, they tend to go into samadhi, into ecstatic states, and the body shuts down when they're in those states. So they can't really exercise the role of teacher or guide or anything. And so they have to attach themselves, they have to anchor themselves at this common level of consciousness, so that they can communicate and so that they can teach and whatnot. And, Ramakrishna, for him, his anchor was the love of the devotees, his love for the devotees and the devotees' love. And so he held on to that. And whenever he would come down out of samadhi, he would ask for a glass of water or formulate some desire to kind of bring him back into his body, to bring him back into this manifested world, this level of consciousness. And so we see that going on, and Radha now is not getting well, and we're going to pick up here with Radhu writing to Holy Mother.
What page are you on, Swami?
I think 302, is that right, Bindu? I just saw a note go up from you.
Yes.
Yes.
302.
Oh, thank you.
302.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah.
In the middle of June 1918, Radhu wrote a letter to Holy Mother. She wanted to come to Calcutta because she had an abscess on one of her fingers. Holy Mother wrote to Kedar in Koalpara and said, Radhu is not well. She wants to come to Calcutta with her husband and mother. If Radu thinks it is necessary, then send Brahmachari Bharata to accompany them. Accordingly, Raju and her companions went to Koalpara, and from there the Brahmachari accompanied them to the mother's residence in Calcutta. Dr. Kanjilal began to treat Raju, and within a couple of weeks she recovered. Raju and her husband had a room upstairs in the Udbodhan house. So the Udbodhan house is still there, and if you ever do a pilgrimage to Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna lived most of his life, actually this whole world that you read about in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and all these places that we're reading about here in the Divine Play of Sri Sharada, you can visit all these places. These places are still there, and most of them have been preserved, and you as a pilgrim can go and meditate in Sri Ramakrishna's room where he gave these lessons and where he gives all of the talks and teachings from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And you can go to Udbodhan, and you can go to Mother's house, and you can see in Koalpara where she stayed while she was there, and the house that they built for her in Jairambati, where she was born and raised. And you can go to Dakshineshwar, where Ramakrishna was born and raised, and his family home is still there, and the shrine where he had many of his experiences is there. And it's a marvelous, if you are a bhakta or someone who practices the path of devotion, it's quite powerful to go sit in the same room and look around and see the pictures on the wall that Ramakrishna talked about in some of his lectures, and to see the cot that he sat on and the bed that he sat on and the mat on the floor that, he would sometimes come off the bed and sit on to talk to people. And you could look out the door and see the all the temples out there in the courtyard at the where he used to do the puja, the worship. And it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. And if you ever have the opportunity, definitely take it. It's really quite delightful. Just to help these things come alive, and to know, like when you read that book, to actually see in your mind's eye where these things happened and what was going on with them. It really brings them to life. Radu became pregnant in August of 1918, and toward the end of the year, her neurasthenia became worse. She became very weak and could not bear any noise. It was difficult for Holy Mother to care for Radu in the Udbodhan house because it was downtown Calcutta. It was noisy there, and there was a shrine upstairs, a publication department downstairs, and many visiting devotees. On the morning of the 31st of December in 1918, Sharadananda sent a message to Swami Shivananda at Belur Math. Belur Math is Belur is a city. It was a suburb. Now it's just part of Calcutta. It's just Calcutta has swallowed Belur, and Mat or Math, as it looks like, that can be translated as monastery. And Belur Mat is the headquarters of the Ramakrishna order. And you can go there also. You can actually stay there in the guest house. It's a beautiful temple if you look it up on Google. And Vivekananda himself, designed that and built that place. And the old shrine, the shrine where Vivekananda gave up his body willingly in meditation, is there. And his room that he lived in there, and where Swami Brahmananda and Shivananda and Sharadan, all these characters that we're reading about in these books, you can see all of these places that they were talking about. And on the banks of the Ganges, it's built, the Belur Math, the monastery is literally on the banks of the river. And if you sit on the banks of the river there and look across and upriver a bit, you can see the temple at Dakshineshwar, where he was the pujari, the worshiper. And it's a delight to have some meditation there. Take some mosquito repellent though. But and they allow you to go in and attend the evening arti. It's quite an atmospheric place. I mean, it's one of the few places that you can see 800 plus monks, sadhus, sannyasins gather every day. They gather at 4 o'clock in the morning for the morning arati every day, which is only in candlelight. It's beautiful. One of my favorite scenes when I was there taking my sannyas, I would come out of the monks' dormitories, and walk toward the temple, and it would be slightly foggy outside. The air would be kind of a sepia color because all of the lights have that sort of yellow tinge to them. Be slightly foggy, slightly misty, and you'd walk toward the temple, and you would see 800 of these sannyasins with their chatters, their shawls over their heads, all dressed identically in orange, all making a silent and very methodical procession from all the different directions toward the temple to assemble for morning meditation there. And I used to get up just a little bit early to go out and just watch that happen, because it was silent, and just before the day started, before anybody else in the world was out of bed, and very quiet, and it just felt so holy, so sacred. And then they would gather in the shrine, and the big candles would be burning in the up on the altar there. The pujari would be getting ready to do the morning arati, where they ring the bells and wave the candles and chant, and then greet the day, and Sri Ramakrishna, who's there in statue form in the front in a white alabaster. It's really a touching scene, and how everybody just in silence comes in, sits on the floor, does their Ashtanga pranams, full on laying out on the floor, bowing to Sri Ramakrishna, and then sitting and preparing themselves for some of them several hours of meditation before breakfast. It's very, very inspiring. So if you ever get a chance and want to give your spiritual life a boost, I would recommend taking a pilgrimage there. If you want to stay in the guest house, you'll need to have a letter of introduction from one of the swamis here, or one of the any swami that that's in the order, and would write that for you. If you don't know anybody, then let me know. We can make those arrangements if you want to ever do that. So there was a publication downstairs and many visiting devotees at Udbodhan. So that's why Radhu was not doing well there. She had that nerve problem, disease, I guess, where any noise was just too much for her to manage. So on the morning of the 31st of December 1918, Sharadananda sent the message to Swami Shivananda at Belur Math, telling him that Holy Mother and Radhu would go to the Legate House, located near the old Belur shrine. Immediately, the monks made that place ready, but at 3 o'clock, another message came, saying that Holy Mother and Radhu had moved to the boarding house of Nivedita's school, which was on a secluded lane. They had moved there because Radhu would not have been able to bear the sound of the bells and the conch, the big shell that they announced the worship with at Belur, and the whistles of the steamers plying on the Ganges River. There was something in here I wanted to share. Oh, Sister Nivedita was an English woman who was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda, who completely devoted herself to the welfare of Indian women, and set up a school there, and lived there, and learned the language, and just really gave up all of her own identity and dedicated herself in the service of India. Actually, she was a big influence in their freedom movement when they were separating from the British power. The next morning, Swami Shivananda sent Brahmachari Bharata to the mother with some vegetables and flowers from Belur Math. When Bharata arrived at the boarding house, Holy Mother said to him, "I am now here with this turbulent ocean," meaning Radhu. Radhu was getting quite petulant and quite demanding. She was very stubborn, and she was very effective in keeping the mother's mind down on this plane of consciousness, because she was very, very troublesome, very argumentative, and very, very stubborn, and so often causing trouble for Mother. So Mother's referring to her as the turbulent ocean right now. "What will happen, Bharata?" she asks. "Now wait and see how many days Radhu will stay here. She is always lying down and cannot stand any noise. I don't know, my son. What kind of disease is this? Only the master knows how she will be free from this illness." Brahmachari Bharata visited the mother regularly every 2 or 3 days. One day the mother said to him, Radu does not like this place anymore. She's asking me to take her to Jairambati. But look at her condition. There are no doctors or medical facilities in Jairambati. It would be easier to get them here. Radu is very stubborn and does not stop until her wish is fulfilled. Let us wait and see what happens next. On Swami Vivekananda's birthday, just the 26th of January, 1919, Sharadananda sent a devotee to Belur Math to ask Brahmachari Bharata to return to Calcutta immediately. The mother had decided to go to Jairambati the next day. In the evening, Bharata arrived at Udbodhan House and met Swami Sharadananda, who sent him to the mother. He went upstairs and saw her seated in the middle of the room, with some coconut ropes for binding the bedding and the trunks. When she saw Bharata, she said, I am going to Jairambati tomorrow with this turbulent ocean. Will you go with me? You boys are my only support there. Bharata replied, whatever you command will be done. Of course I will go with you. Relieved, the mother said, oh, my son, take these robes, pack everything and tie the bundles up. I was just waiting for you. Bharata and Holy Mother packed the baggage of Radu, Maku, and the others until 11 o'clock at night. Now imagine the scene. I mean, this is Holy Mother. She's getting up there in age at this point, and she's a holy woman. She's a holy woman. And here she is, she's the one that's packing the bags and tying up everything with cables and getting everything together until 11 o'clock at night. I mean, just imagine. It's amazing. When Bharata came downstairs, Sharada told him, I want you to stay with the mother and help her as long as she wants you. Bharata joyfully agreed. He remained with Holy Mother and served her until her last day. Wonderful. Early in the morning, it was 27th of January, 1919, Holy Mother left by horse carriage for the train with Radu, Surabala, Maku, and her son Neda, Nalini, and Mandakini Roy, a widow disciple and attendant of the mother, as well as Brahmachari Ganan, Vijan, later Swami Gangeshananda, and Brahmachari Bharata. The mother and her women companions traveled in a reserved second-class compartment, and the men went in an inter-class coach. The mother sat on a blanket on the floor of the coach and extended her legs to relieve her rheumatism. Goodness, look at that. I mean, even that condition, her rheumatism, she couldn't sit in the chair like that. And she was up till 11 the night before packing. Oh, that poor dear. After arriving at Vishnupur, the party went to Sureshwar Sen's house, which was kept ready for Holy Mother. They stayed there for 2 days. One morning, Sureshwar brought an astrologer who read the palms of Radu and Maku. He predicted that Radu would not have an easy delivery and that Maku would have several children, but they would not see each other. This made Maku very upset. She reported this to the mother, crying. Holy Mother was concerned, as Neda was then 2.5 years old and Maku was pregnant. She called the astrologer privately and asked how she could counteract Maku's destiny. He suggested Maku should listen to the Chandi attentively for 3 Tuesdays and perform a fire ceremony and a ritualistic worship. Later, Holy Mother arranged for this. On the morning of the 29th of January, the party left for Jairambati in 6 bullock carts. Brahmachari Bharata recorded a marvelous story concerning the mother's presence of mind, strong common sense, and her ability to adapt to time and situation. Here is his recorded account. It was the winter of 1919. Holy Mother and her party went from Calcutta to Vishnupur by train, and then by 6 bullock carts to Kolpara. Kolpara is this beautiful, very small, still very small, quiet town. And you can actually go to Mother's hut where she used to stay, and her shrine is in there, and you can go in there and spend some time in meditation. It's just, there's not many places in the world that are still very much like they were 1,000 years ago, but these small villages in India are. You can go there, the thatched huts, the way of life, people working in the rice fields, the bullock carts, they're all still there. It's all still carrying on. And so when you go to these places, it really takes you right to the scene of what's happening, even here. On the way, we stopped at Jaipur, which is 8 miles from Vishnupur, where the cook began to prepare dal near a roadside inn. The mother was happy to see the arrangements for cooking. She washed her hands and feet in the nearby pond and then helped by cutting vegetables. The cooking was nearly done when the cook accidentally broke the earthen rice pot while removing the extra foamy water. The cooked rice was scattered on the ground. What to do? We were in a dilemma. We thought that if we bought another pot and cooked more rice, it would be too late to reach Kolpara. And moreover, the road was not safe at that hour. We still had to go another 14 miles. The mother was not upset at all. This is a value. This is something that comes with spiritual practice, and it's indicative of the practitioner's inner world. You know, there's it sounds odd to talk about it in that way, but these great souls in their spiritual practice, their inner world was actually bigger to them than this external world. You know, they had found, you know, when I had asked Swami Prabhupada many years ago, you know, when Ramakrishna says that which is unchanging alone is real, that which changes is not real. You know, I had asked him, what was it that was unchanging? I couldn't think of anything or see anything, experience anything that was not changing. And he said, did you consider that which was looking, meaning your inner eye, that which is watching your mind? That is, and he said in me, you know, that which was looking for that thing that was unchanging, that is the thing itself. And these great souls, they know that unchanging self to be who they are. They've withdrawn from the mind and they've withdrawn from the body. And so these external events are almost echoes to them. So they're not ever pulled out of that inner peace. They're not ever pulled out of that knowledge of the presence of the divine. And so Holy Mother this is indicative of her, because that's where she lived. She knew herself. And that's what it means for us to know the self, to know what we are. And we only know that when everything silences within and we come to a knowledge of ourself when nothing is telling us about it, where we just know inherently through our being what our nature is. When the mind has silenced, it puts an end to time. It pulls us into that sense of eternity within. The boundaries kind of fall away because they all belong to ego. The past falls away because as ego dissolves, our identity with the past dissolves. When desire is dissolved in us, when we stop longing for things outside of ourselves, the future also dissolves, because the future is only a tool of the mind to accumulate, to get the desires, to manifest its desires in the present moment. So all of this begins to silence inside, and that is why these great souls have such an even-minded character. They're not disturbed by things. You can't get them angry, you know, and if you do get them angry, it's for just a moment, and it's usually for your own benefit that it shows or comes out. And they have an atmosphere that they carry with them. Even Swami Prabhupada, I've mentioned it many times, had an atmosphere within himself. He would walk into a room and that room would silence. You know, that's one of the stories I tell about Swami Vedananda also. He used to go to these interfaith meetings. And, you know, the people would talk across each other at the table. There'd be lots of cacophony. And, you know, I've heard a report from one of the people that was present at those meetings that anytime that Swami Vedananda would hardly ever say anything. He was just a listener, a very quiet and humble soul. But when he would say something, he was the only one that nobody would talk over. The whole table would go quiet whenever he spoke, whenever he said anything. Because these great souls, you know, those people that really have put that earnest and sincere effort into knowing themselves and to knowing God, this is one of the things that develops within them. You want to hear what they say, because their words are always few, but their words are always extremely deep, extremely, extremely effective because they don't waste words, and the words are not a matter of egoism or wanting to be heard or wanting to be showy. They are really just coming that whatever they say comes from the self itself. It doesn't come through a calculated mind. It's rising from inspiration of nature. And there's a sound in that. There's a feeling in that. There's an atmosphere to that, which is just captivating. The mother was not upset at all. She slowly removed the foam from the rice with a straw ladle and collected the rice that had not touched the ground. She then washed her hands and took out the master's picture from her tin box and placed it on the corner of the box. On a sal leaf, she put some rice, dal, and vegetables and placed this in front of the master. With folded hands, she prayed, "Master," and she's talking to, her ideal, Sri Ramakrishna. "Master, you have arranged this food for us today. Please eat it now quickly while it is warm." Observing the mother's unconventional behavior, we began to laugh. You'd have to know within the Indian culture, pretty much any context. If rice had fallen on the ground and the pot had broken and there's rice all over the floor, nobody, especially within India, would even think of taking that rice off of the floor and offering it on the shrine. That just would not be done. And here the mother is just very calmly going down and saying, "Well, master, you've arranged for it to be like this, so this is what you're going to get fed." This is all we can do. So observing the mother's unconventional behavior, we began to laugh. The mother then told us, "Look, one should act and adapt according to circumstances. Now all of you sit down and I shall serve the food." The mother's women companions and the rest of us sat on the ground. She scooped rice with a wooden ladle from the top of the heap and put it on our leaf plates one after another, and then added the other dishes. She also took food in the same way and began to eat, extending her legs. She commented, "The food is delicious." We hurriedly finished our lunch, packed the luggage, and resumed our journey. We reached Kolpara Ashram at 11 p.m. So this idea of flexibility, it's funny, I don't know, I was watching a YouTube video on mental health last night. And the woman being interviewed was saying that one of the signs of a healthy mind is flexibility, that it doesn't get attached and held into a certain way of doing things or a certain way of thinking or a certain way of being. But just like mother here, when something, comes in, instead of getting angry, instead of getting annoyed, instead of being bothered by it, she was unchanged. Her mood remained steady, and she did something very unconventional, something that would be very disturbing to some people, saving the rice off of the floor, because in India, the floor was probably dirt. Probably wasn't a tile floor somewhere, and serving it. And she's telling us, look, in times like this, the mind should be flexible. You don't get upset. You stay solution oriented. I think I heard that in a business meeting one time many years ago. To be solution oriented. It's easy to see problems. That's not a gift. To know what's wrong with the world is not an advantage and not a gift. But to be able to think in terms of how to solve problems, to see solutions and present them and talk about them and come forward with ideas, that is a gift. To these guys running for president, standing up and talking about what's wrong with the world, not helpful, not important, not a gift, not insightful. But if you stand up and you present solutions, you present possibilities, you set a vision, set something that unifies and inspires, that's a gift. And that's how we want to be in life. We want to be flexible, solution-oriented, and steady. We don't want to go up and down with the circumstances and conditions of the external world. So we stabilize ourselves, fortunately, in the inner shrine, in the presence of a divine love that will grow in you as you practice. And as the years pass, if it hasn't already, I'm talking to many who probably know that. But so they arrived at Calcutta and in Kolpara at 11 p.m. I got to stay there, actually. I stayed 2 nights in Kolpara. years ago. It's still a tiny little village. That's that place where then I tell that story of the old man that fell on the floor when he heard that I was a novice, a brahmachari, a monk, because I was white and I was from America. And to him, America was the land of opportunity, the land of riches, And it was funny because I was in their shrine is outdoors, and it's just got iron bars all around it. So it doesn't have walls. It just kind of has an iron fence with a little thatched roof on it. And I was coming out of that, and the Swami was there, and this very old man, very short, all beard, all white hair, came over and was talking to me, but he was speaking to me, I guess in Bengali. I didn't know what language. I didn't understand him. And I was standing there, and he was talking to me, and he was confused because I wasn't answering him. And so the Swami saw it happening from a distance, and he came over, and he talked to the man, and was going back and forth. And at some point in the conversation between this old man and the Swami, he looked at me with such a puzzled look and pointed and said something. And I asked the Swami, I said, what's he saying? And the Swami says, he's asking what kind of man doesn't speak Bengali? He had never in his life met somebody that couldn't speak Bengali. And then the Swami told him that I was from America. And, I only saw all of this happen in action. I didn't understand any of the words until after the Swami explained what happened. Because when the Swami told him that I was from America, the man fell to the ground, laid flat on the ground with his face in the dirt, and laid his hands on my feet and just grabbed my feet and wouldn't let go and began weeping. And the Swami, that it's not really good to do that to a brahmachari. Brahmachari still has ego, and and I was just confused. I just didn't know what was happening. And he helped the man get up, and he told me, he said the man was weeping, and he was saying while he was weeping, he says all of his life he has been trying to renounce, and all of his life he has been trying to let go of his possessions, and he has not been able to do it. And that he says, and that this boy here, coming from the land of wealth, coming from the land of America, was able to renounce. He gave me much more credit than I deserved, but for him it was staggering. And literally, just see how deeply he felt that when he heard just that, he fell to the ground, and began crying, began weeping. And it was one of the moments that really defined my life. Actually, it was really intense to see. It really helped me in a lot of ways. So anyway, this was all in Koalpara, where they are right now. On this occasion, Holy Mother and Radu shared a bullock cart. When the cart approached Kodalpur, Radu began to push Holy Mother with her feet and said, "Get away from here. Get away. Get out of the cart." Holy Mother moved to the back as far as possible and said, "If I move away, then how shall I practice all these austerities through you?" And Radu kicked her again, and Holy Mother said hastily, "What is it you have done, Radu? What have you done?" Quickly, she took the dust of her own feet and touched it to Radu's head. So, Holy Mother was a holy woman. She was a pure woman. She was a seer of God. And for Radu to be kicking her with her feet, especially in the context of the role of feet in Indian culture, that was a horrible insult to be doing that. And Mother was concerned about the karma that Radu was putting on her own head by behaving that way toward her mother, which alone would be enough of an insult. But then to talk not just to a mother, but to a holy woman, to a seer, is not. It was staggering. Right, with Holy Mother in Koalpara, it was decided that the party would rest in Koalpara for a couple of days before continuing to Jarambati. However, Radu slept well for 2 nights, and she wanted to stay in that quiet village. The mother consulted with Kali Kumar and the others, and they suggested that it would be good for Radhu to stay in Kualpara rather than to continue to Jairambati. Radhu remained in Kualpara for 6 months. Kualpara Ashrama stands on the main road from Kotalpur to Desra on the way to Jairambati. It has a shrine, a kitchen, a dining room, rooms for the monks and devotees, and a well. On the 14th of November, 1911, the mother had installed photos of the master and herself on the altar of the ashrama shrine. Holy Mother and Radhu stayed at Jagadamba Ashrama, which was at the farthest end of the village, about 2 furlongs east of the monastery. It had been built in 1915. This compound was a solitary place, surrounded by high walls. The mother's cottage was spacious and had a cement floor. Near it was a kitchen. A big cottage at the southeast corner could accommodate 7 or 8 women devotees. Another cottage at the southwest corner served as a visitor's room for the men devotees who visited the mother from time to time. Monks and the men devotees ate at Kualpara Ashrama, while the women ate at the Jagadamba Ashrama. Nearly 40 people lived in the 2 ashramas, and Sharadananda bore most of the expenses. During this period, many devotees came to Kualpara and received initiation from Holy Mother. After spending a few days in Kualpara, the mother said to Brahmachari Bharata, "Something has happened lately. Whatever thought arises in my mind comes true, be it good or bad. Radhu likes this wild jungle because it is quiet. You are gone the whole day doing all sorts of errands. You come here before dusk and eat, and you stay in the visitors' rooms at the night. I am a little scared because Radhu and Maku have jewelry here. I have asked Brahmachari Rajan to come here at 10 or 11 at night after finishing his work in the ashrama." After supper, the mother used to talk to Brahmachari Bharata about the master and about her problems. They would sit under a tree in the courtyard and speak in low voices so that Radhu would not hear. One evening, the mother said, "Look, Bharata, this jungle is so dense, and I wonder if one day a bear may appear." "Mother, we have never seen a bear in this area." "Well, my son, this jungle is so dark and it frightens me." A couple of days later, news came that the mother-in-law of Ambika, the village watchman, was mauled in Destra field by a big bear. The villagers shot and killed the bear. Holy Mother engaged a Brahmin pundit to read the Chandi and to perform the ritual suggested by the astrologer to ward off Maku's evil portent. Now Holy Mother hoped for Radhu's safe delivery. Radhu's heart palpitated with even the slightest noise, so she remained lying down, clutching some blankets to her chest. Swami Sharadananda sent a doctor and a midwife to Kualpara for Radhu. Late one evening, while the mother, Mandakini, and Brahmachari Bharata were talking under the courtyard tree, Mandakini said to Bharata, "Brother, the mother and I were seated here under the shade of this tree at noon. The mother said for some days 2 crows would come at noon and caw, and this would disturb Radhu. But I haven't seen them the last few days. Where have they gone?" Immediately those 2 crows came and began to caw from the tree. The mother smiled and corroborated the story. It was in the middle of June, 1919. It had been raining for a few days. One night at 10 o'clock, the mother, Mandakini, and Brahmachari Bharata were seated under the tree. Suddenly the mother said, "That madman from Sihar has not shown up for some days. He is totally mad, but he sings well. I'm afraid lest he should come and create a problem here." Mandakini said, "Mother, why did you mention his name? He may appear here right now." Bharata said that it would be impossible for him to come there at night, crossing the overflowing river. Just then, that madman appeared with a palm leaf hat on his head and some spinach under his arm. He said to the mother, "I have brought some spinach for you." The mother told him in a low voice, "Please go now. Don't make any noise." The man replied, "How can I go now? The river is overflowing." Bharata asked, "Then how did you come?" "I swam," he replied. The mother said in a sweet tone, "My child, please don't make any noise." The man left without saying a word. We just read up there that Holy Mother, that she was in a state of mind where what she said would come true, so whether it was good or bad. And this sounds like a miracle, but there's other places in the gospel where this happens. And I would offer a kind of a possibility of really what's going on with that, is that in a pure mind, there's no egoism, and when that mind is that pure, what goes through that mind emanates from from that pure heart, from that pure self. And what has happened is that the individual will is gone. And really, it's the universal will that manifests through such a person. You see this in Ramakrishna when he had the idea of building the wall around the Panchavati at Dakshineshwar. That as soon as he expressed a desire to build that wall around that, or that fence around the Panchavati, that instantly everything necessary to do that washed up on the banks of the Ganges. And again, that looks like a miracle, and it certainly can be explained that way as well. But really, I think that these great souls, their minds are expressions of the divine will. So they see things happen as they happen. Their will and the divine will are at union, that there's no difference between them. It's like in the Garden of Eden, before the violation, before the formation of ego, which is that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eating that fruit formed the ego in Adam and Eve, because for the first time they created a will in themselves that was separate from the divine will. But up until that point, they were created in the image of the divine, and the will of the divine and their will were the same. They were not different. There were not multiple wills in that. And in our highest state, as we diminish our ego, as that disappears, like Sri Ramakrishna says, that which arises in pure mind is the voice of the divine. And so when the ego of the lower self is dissolved, is diminished, our will aligns with the divine will, with the universal will. And the universal will, as you know, there's not really a will for God, because God's will is. It's like there's no lapse in time. It's not like he wants something to happen and then it happens. It's that what happens is an instant expression of the divine will. And so when Mother would speak, she's speaking from, almost in a way, from the universe. And so what she says is, and Ramakrishna, when he built his fence, what he desired was the divine will. And so what he desired was, or is, in the moment, it manifests immediately like that. It's an extra, it's an amazing thing to read about. It's quite staggering, actually, to see that actually recorded, by someone else, saying this was going on, this was happening right there. You see the same thing with the bear. She says, I'm nervous about a bear. And the man says, "Oh, there's never been a bear seen here." Then the very next day, that man is mauled by a bear in the field. It's like, and now she's mentioning the jewelry, and the women being alone in the jungle like that with jewelry, and that there might be dacoits, thugs, criminals around, who become aware that there's some girls staying without protection with jewelry. Something like that. So I'm kind of nervous that in the next few paragraphs we might read something about that, which I hope isn't true, but I guess we don't have to worry long over with. Okay. So the man leaves, the crazy man. And again, here it is with the crazy man. Again, Mother mentions the crazy man. She puts the crazy man in her mind, and boom, there he is. He shows up on the scene. And then she asks him, "Please, child, don't make any noise." And the man left without saying a word. The mother had been deeply concerned about Radhu for months, and she followed any suggested remedy with all sincerity and full faith. Regarding difficult and complicated matters, she depended on the master's will and remained calm. In March of 1919, Nalini suggested, "Aunt, when Radhu's mother became mad, You made her wear that bangle from the wild collie of Tyrol, and that improved her condition. I think Ratu will recover if she wears that wild collie's bangle. Accordingly, the next day, the mother sent Brahmachari Bharata to Tyrol, which is about 20 miles from Polpara. Bharata walked to Amarbagh, where he spent the night at a devotee's house. The next morning, he went to Tyrol. He offered 5 rupees for the Kali worship, 2 rupees to the priest, and 7 rupees for an iron bangle. They returned to Kolpara in the evening and kept the bangle hanging on a tree branch so it would not touch the ground. The next morning, Ratu took her bath and put it on. She fasted for the rest of the day. Holy Mother prayed to Mother Kali and promised to offer a special worship after Ratu's recovery. There was no change in Ratu, but Surabala became even more unstable and angry because Holy Mother was following Nalini's suggestions. Surabala said to the mother, "Why did you bring Ratu here? She would have been better off in Calcutta where everything was available. Here the weather is hot. If you can arrange to put an ice pack on Radu's head, she will get well." To pacify Surabala, the mother sent Bharata to get ice from Bankura. The next day, Bharata rode his bicycle to Vishnupur and then took a train to Bankura. He bought 20 pounds of rice and packed it in sawdust, of ice, not rice. He bought 20 pounds of ice and packed it in sawdust so that it would not melt. He returned to Vishnupur by train and to Kualpara by bicycle. The mother and Surabala began to put ice on Radu's head. This is really amazing. It really shows you the heart of the mother. Because here, Radu was kicking her and abusing her and insulting her. And Radu's the source of all of this trouble. She was the one that refused to stay, stubbornly refused to stay in Calcutta, stubbornly refused to stay anywhere that was near a doctor and all these things. And the mother here is still, sending the brahmachari off 20 miles to get that bangle, the bangle, and now sending this other person off to get the ice to take care of Ratu. Mother's love, this is a sign, a real lesson about the nature of divine love. The divine love is not conditional, that it's not based on your actions, your worthiness, or your own qualifications. That divine love flows freely and evenly to everyone all the time. And that's it. That's just such an important lesson because it's this knowledge of God's love that brings us forward, that inspires us out of our little prisons of safety or delusion that we've created to keep ourselves safe in life. It's creating a world around us that we feel like is somewhat safe, that we are in somewhat have a sense of control of, when in reality we live in a world of constant non-repeating change, and there is no security there. And that this is why the divine always tells us, take refuge in me alone. Why? Because God alone is that unchanging principle within you, that unchanging Sat Ananda, unchanging love, unchanging wisdom, and unchanging presence. It's that same space that we were talking about earlier, where a person of knowledge resides. They've withdrawn their sense of self from the body and from the mind and have established it in that unchanging presence of the divine deep within, that normally in a normal person goes unnoticed because we're addicted to change. We're addicted to thought and thinking. And so our attention is always in the mind and in the outgoing senses. We don't really know much about our internal world. And so we see the importance of that, of finding out who you are. That's really the essence of Vedanta, is to find out what your nature is. Who are you? And once you know who you are, you act from the inspiration of that source, that divine image, the image of God in Christian speak, the image of God that is within you, that it's that divine principle of pure love and pure wisdom and pure being that emanates and flows through your mind and comes out of this side of your face as your personality, as who you are, and that sense of ego that forms between that expression and the heart that creates your named persona, whatever you think you are. And that we really have to escape that box of that prison of egoism so that we can hear the voice of the divine that arises in pure mind and pure heart, and act from love, wisdom, and being. And that takes away the confusion in life. You know, our life loses meaning when we live in the material world, because there's no meaning to things in the material world. The material world, everything goes in circles. Everything that you do is ultimately undone. Build a house, one day it will come down. You know, make your bed. You get back in it in the evening, wash the dishes, they get dirty again. Clean your house, it gets dirty again. You know, everything in the material universe is a cycle. And if you live in that cycle, it's terribly frustrating to understand that everything done is undone. Everything that is composed must decompose. And that's the rule of this material world. And in that, where do you come up with meaning? Where do you come up with value? Where do you find that profundity of living in a cubicle farm? And so it's so important for us to touch this inner nature, so important for us to find this beauty of what we are inside, and to learn to live through the inspiration of that divine image, that divine principle of an unconditioned and infinite love, of a wise and deep knowing, through this mysterious thing called existence, called being. And by touching that, life becomes fulfilling. By knowing that, you know how to act, you know how to respond. You are at home wherever you are, because your home is within your very self. You are always loved, so by this divine love that flows through you. And to touch its source within yourself, you no longer need, you're no longer having to grab and reach and try and scratch, like as God talks about in that story of the Garden of Eden, the curse, that because Eve had eaten of that fruit and become egotistical, had developed a will separate from God, had gone into the senses to define herself and to form her hungers and desires, and then to reach out into the material world to try and fulfill them, to try and become whole again through the material world. And God said, because you've done this, you've destined yourself to have to scratch and till at the dust of the earth for all the days of your life to fulfill your desires. See, this is the nature, and this is what has happened to us. And this is why we're confused, and why we're lonely, and why we're depressed, and why we're angry, and why we're frustrated. Because we don't know who we are, and we base our identity on things that are changing constantly. Genders and bodies and moods and minds and aspirations and events and conditions and circumstances. Nothing. It's all the sand of the foolish man in Jesus's parable. It's all the sand of the foolish man that has his house crumble and fall to the ground. And that rock within us to build our house that the wise man builds on. It's that unchanging image of the divine, that divine principle. So we build our lives on the divine principle, inspired by a divine love that's infinite and without condition, built on a divine wisdom that's deep and instantly available in the moment, spontaneously available in the moment, by our nature, from our nature. And through that, we find our stability, our confidence, our steadiness, our security, our depth, our profundity, our strength, and above all, our inspiration. To create beauty, which is our nature, with everything presented to us in our moment. This is the answer to life. This is that treasure, that Jesus talked about, that Ramakrishna talked about. These are the treasures that lie within yourself, and to see them here just manifested. You just look at Mother's life. Her grace and her concern for others is amazing. And her dedication to service in others coming from this source. So she's not bothered. She's not diminished by her service. She doesn't expect a return on her service. Her service is not conditioned Treat her how you want to treat her. She will still seek to alleviate your suffering because she knows it to be her own nature to alleviate suffering. So this is why we practice. This is why we practice. And this is who we are. So we go. We live spontaneously in the moment, joyfully expressing our story of love, creating beauty out of whatever conditions are in our moment or in our circumstance. So we stop there. Let me turn off the recorder.